This is my podcast, isn't it? So I could sort of do something and say, why are we all here today? What does everyone need?
Hello and welcome.
Should we do all that weird stuff that people do with podcasts? Charlie's like, I'm going to vomit. It's really funny that before knowing we're going to do this, because I'm like, oh, my mind starts going, what should we talk about? You know, the upstairs thinking. And it's like, oh, God, where do we even start? Like, just in 1 week, all the things that have happened. And it's like, and then I was like, oh, I don't think about it. Ask what I need. And it was like, oh, I don't know. It was like, but it went peaceful. Like, I went peaceful. You know, all the like, da, 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 da. It was just kind of like, oh, I don't know. I'm just going to show up and ask and see where everyone's at. I was like, oh, yeah, cool. And then that was that. It was like done. There was all of that stopped. So here we are.
Noble distractions.
Noble. Are they allowed to be called noble? They're bloody annoying to me.
No, it's a particular kind of distraction that appears to be noble,
Please
but
talk
it's still
more.
a distraction. It came up a couple of times on calls with people this week, and so I had to name it.
Oh, is it a new name?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, talk more.
Like unhelpful helpers and so on.
Yeah.
So noble distractions. It's I'm doing this for the family. It's a distraction. Or all of the I have to do this in order to do that.
Oh, I had a horrible one of those this week.
Yeah.
Tricky.
But like this sort of thing that makes it worth it, it's still a distraction. And so even if it's like I'm solving world hunger, so I have to do this and this, or even if it's I'm liberating all living beings from suffering, so I have to do this, or even if it's I'm something for my future self or my community in the future or my family in the future, It's like if you're telling yourself you have to do something logically because you need to do that future thing, but you're not checking whether you need to do the thing right now or whether the thing that you're doing right now is exactly what you need, then it's a noble distraction.
That just made number 5 in the principles of clarity like go a level deeper for me. I'm calling it number 5, so I didn't know whether I could say what it was. It was spoiler.
Distractions make it harder to be
clear. Avoid distractions.
And it's one of those things where if you're not listening for what you need here and now, if you're listening to anything else than what you need here and now, then no matter how noble that thing is, it doesn't matter what it is if it has the function of distracting you from paying attention to what's happening here and now. And so even if the goal is like super holy and super sacred or super noble or super selfless, you're not actually going to be helping if you're telling yourself that goal makes it worth ignoring yourself right now, makes it worth ignoring what you actually need right now.
How annoying.
So I was thinking about the these news articles this week about the power down in Heathrow. All the power cut out, all the planes had to stop. And it was really interesting reading the news articles. You can look at them because the CEO or the head or whoever it is of Heathrow Airport went to bed. The whole thing went powered down, full crisis. No one knows what to do. And at like 2:00 in the morning or something, he, is at home asleep, totally offline until 7:00 next morning.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you can feel in the same article the journalist is sort of going like, that's outrageous, you know, such neglect, just sort of like selfish and like entitled to think it's fine for him to go and sleep while all around the world people are, you know, directly suffering, where it's something that he could mend, you know, he could do something about. And instead he's just tucked up in bed, you know.
Yeah, like
And,
really
but
nasty.
then in the same article they're kind of going like, and the next morning when he wakes up, he's going to have to make thousands of decisions that might be like have life and death consequences for like hundreds and hundreds of people. And so he
Hundreds of
really needs to
thousands
be
even. Like
so
massive.
he needs to be really well rested in order to make those decisions. And so it's like you can feel these two opposing views, these two opposing kind of commitments to like, you just got to get stuff done. You know, or you actually have to do what's needed, you know, like if you're a lorry driver, you have to stop and take a rest so you don't plow your juggernaut into someone. And it's like, oh, wait, do we sort of flag them off for having carried on driving when they should have slept, or do we flag them off for resting when they should be working? And you could feel they couldn't quite work out where to land. And so that's the thing where like you could so easily be caught by the noble distraction, be caught by the idea like, I can't go to bed, are you crazy? There's so much to do. Objectively, rationally, I have to do these things. And actually, you have to listen in that moment. But yeah, I have to stay up another hour, or yeah, I have to stay up and do an all-nighter. Or you have to listen in that moment and say like, oh God, you know, this is the hardest thing, to go and just go to bed and tuck in and have a little sleep while it's like full carnage. But actually listening in that moment and undistracted by the big, noble, sacred distraction, saying like, yeah, that's what I need. So I'm going to go to sleep. So beware noble distractions.
The bit that comes up for me is, I think, is another principle about what are the consequences of doing something you don't need.
That's the worst one yet for me. The brutalness of that. Are we allowed to say what it is, Charlie? Or just keep it to that?
No. This is from the Principles of Clarity.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's hit my group. Like, we all just went, oh God.
Because it sounds like it's a minor thing. It's like, oh, you know, sometimes it feels like a minor thing to push through to, you know, well, but no, I have to do this. But what are the consequences of doing that?
Yeah.
Whilst believing that the consequences of not doing it are bigger as well. There's like, because there's consequences either way. But what seems to win out, or what wins out for me, is the not showing up consequences until doing this work. What's run and won the day is like, I have to show up because I said I would, show up at all costs, da-di-da-di-da-di-da.
But that's the thing. If the commitment is in place that you must show up at all costs, then your brain will helpfully tell the story to support your commitment. You know, like your thinking will be like, yes, it makes sense actually to show up, because just think of all the bad things. Like sort of comforting.
All the people I've let down, all the carnage that will ensue if I don't show up to the meeting. Or like when I was a chef, like not showing up as a chef in a kitchen was like, we even explicitly said it out loud, unless you're dying, you better be in work. Like to each other and to ourselves. It was like you had to be so ill or in so much pain that you physically couldn't come. That was the only permissible reason to not come to work. Otherwise, you'd have let everybody down. Your teammates, the kitchen, the customers coming in for lunch or dinner. And we used to come in exhausted, sick, tired, broken, like the number of cycles of like burnout I did. Because you weren't allowed to have a break unless you were totally burnt out. So, well, every year or two, what did I end up? Totally fucked.
it's the same thing with performance and like stand up and where like I remember the question is, are you dead? You know, it's like then valid excuse if you're dead.
Yeah,
like,
and you get a pass.
Well, but there's like dead on the inside. Like, yeah, I'm dead on the inside. If I
not
come
enough.
and do this,
No,
it's not allowed. It's not allowed. It's not
literal
You're
dead.
breathing and your arms and legs are working.
Someone should put you on a trolley and wheel you out.
Just want my representative. Like, if the person on the inside is asleep at home, that's fine, as long as like their body's there.
So the difference between, you're saying, well, there's consequences on either side. Like, if I show up, there might be consequences because I'll end up too burnt out and exhausted. If I don't show up, there'll be consequences because I'll let people down. Blah, 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 blah. And in that moment, it can feel like, well, it's, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And on balance, letting people down, because
there's more of them than just me, right? The balance almost is the other. Like I'll let loads of people down. Whereas if I go,
let myself
I'll only have let myself down.
And it's noble, right? You're sacrificing yourself.
Look at me,
for others.
Myself.
Like how wonderful! Like what a beautiful thing to do. But like, so you can make a rational argument in either direction. And it might be that if you've grown up in a culture that like prioritizes showing up and things like that, then you're going to lean towards doing it anyway.
Yeah.
But actually, there's consequences on this side of like not doing that. There's consequences of that side of not doing that. But then there's a separate set of consequences.
Yeah.
And the separate set of consequences is if you opt for the doing what you don't need to do.
Yeah.
It's like switching off the sat nav. Because if you're doing what's needed and listening for what's needed, then there might be consequences, but then you're listening. You're still in the mode of listening for what's happening, listening for what you need, listening for your next step, like having that kind of feedback loop of like, okay, well, I'm doing this and that's helping because it meets this need in me, Like there's the feedback loop is still live. But if you choose the other one, if I'm not going to do what I need, I'm going to be noble and like imagine what someone else might need and then be led by what I imagine they might need. There's no feedback loop. You're purely living from the theory. You're purely trying to navigate based on a theory of what you think someone else might need. You're not actually.
There's a tricky feed. There feels like there's a feedback loop though, because I like just thinking about kitchens. And maybe it's a fake feedback loop, but there's a like camaraderie of like, well done, you made it, you're one of the team, like we used to talk about it like it was like being in the army. We used to have chefs that had come from the Navy and the Army and the Air Force, and we used to talk about, so that there was and it might be I don't know what kind of a feedback loop it is, but there felt like there was one.
It's whatever it is, number 15, number 16, we'll have to talk about the principle of clarity properly another day, but like praise and blame, right?
Yeah, 16.
That's the feedback loop you're talking about.
Yes,
it's like, there's the feedback loop of if you do the thing where you're not listening
thing that doesn't help make you be clearer,
then you're being praised. You're like, oh well, I did the thing that I don't need, so I'm being praised. And then it's like, all right, now you're navigating based on how much other people think it's a good idea. And that means you've completely lost your autonomy. You're not making decisions. It's like that there's a anecdote about a psychology professor where his students one day decided to do an experiment on him where he used to sort of pace up and down the stage as he gave his lecture, and so they just decided if he paces left, look more interested. If he paces right, look less interested, and see if they could get him to go like further and further. And like the punchline is he like falls off the stage. On the far left
oh God.
Like, if you want to fall off the left-hand side of fall off stage left or whatever, then sure, choose that feedback loop of like.
It's so trappy though. It's horrible. Like learning this at 44 really hurts.
Yeah.
like looking back, going, oh my God, like all the times. And then the worst bit of then also then looking back going, oh, and all the bits I don't know that happened either, like all of the non-realized consequences that happened. Oh.
And like praise being bad enough, but then there's also blame. I think that's, for me, that's more alive. It's like, oh, don't do that because somebody will be upset. Oh God, don't do that. Somebody will be angry. It's the kind of avoiding certain kinds of feedback or moving towards other kinds of feedback.
I was going to say that, yeah, that lands differently for me because I'm quite, I can't remember which group we were talking about, like, I'll show you. So I'm quite up for that. I'm like, fuck you, you know, like, getting the blame in a, you know, but yeah, it's funny how all these different things work differently.
The image that comes to my mind is that if you're not listening for what's needed here and now, then it means that you're trying to find your way by not paying attention to what's here, right? Just paying attention to like a theory. And so the image that comes to mind,
so stupid.
It's like setting off from your house and before you leave, just covering the windscreen with a blanket.
All right, I already felt stupid. I'm now going to feel more stupid.
I think going like, it's okay. I know that turning left is the right thing to do now. You know.
And so I'm
hoping that left.
And hoping that nobody goes, ow, when you do it. Or going, yes, well done, you missed me.
Oh, God.
But that's it, isn't it? Like, if you're driving a car, you're going to look out the window. You're going to look out the front window, right? Like, it's obvious. Like, it's your first priority. Yeah. And, you know, and we know that, like, you might look at your phone, you might look at the radio, you might look at, you know, moment, look out the rear view mirrors, the side mirrors, But, like, in a way, you don't really need to be taught that if you're going 80 miles an hour down a motorway, look out the front.
Watch what you're doing.
Right? Pay attention to what's happening here and now, rather than like, well, normally when someone's driving a car, they do this. You know, like my friend said they really love turning left. So you know.
On the motorway whilst trying to go straight on.
Yeah, it's like, it's so obvious that like the first priority is pay attention to what's happening here and now. Yeah. Like when you're driving a car. It's just that we're always driving a car.
Man. So the game of chicken, where two guys drive at each other, is like the ultimate in not listening to everything that your body's telling you and keep driving straight at the other car. Wow, that's how I've done my whole life, playing a massive game of chicken until now. Oh. I think I need a moment to weep again. Except I've done this work for long enough now that it's just hilarious rather than like, oh, God. It's just how it is. Oh, look, what a nightmare. Oh, man. Imagine what I could have done if I listened. The worst part about all of it is that not listening was quite successful for me in a like outward world, not in an inner world. Like inner world, total fuckery. But in the outer world, it was like, get even more praise of like, yay, you're going the wrong way. Well done. Keep going.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? The distractions that aren't appealing, they're no trouble. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're like, I've got a lot to do today, but there's a big pile of washing up. Yeah, I have got a lot to do. I should really prioritize these things on my to-do list. But there is more washing up. I think it can wait till later. You know, those distractions are fine. You know, like, I should, you know, I should take to the, you know, kids to this and this and blah, blah, blah. But like, I have got that meeting with the bank manager where like, he's going to say all those horrible things to me. Like, it's potentially distracting, but like, I'm going to stay focused on what I'm doing. And that can wait till another, you know, it's like,
yeah,
like the distractions that aren't like totally, you know,
they don't
insinuate themselves.
They're fun distractions or
no, but also just noble distractions.
Yeah,
like because it can be something that's hard, but you know, if you're in like martyring yourself mode, then then it still ticks a box.
Yeah, okay, yeah, like kitchens. Oh.
And so it's not that distractions have to be fun. It's that they have to be more appealing than listening to here and now. And often that can be anything.
Oh,
sometimes the washing up is more appealing than
feeling feelings.
Feeling feelings or
yeah, of course.
By email or going to the bank manager, pit those up against each other.
Yeah. The good news is, like, I don't even know what to say now. The good news is that, Charlie, a couple of years ago, I met you. Somebody knows a different way, because the way I've done so far is going to kill me. Like, I think literally killing me, not like, flippantly, like proper, adrenal burnout or something. Like, fairly major symptoms. Physically as well as emotionally, mentally. So the good news, I guess, is that it doesn't have to be like this. And what I will say is once I started listening, it was a bit overwhelming because I realized how much I hadn't listened. So there was it occurred like there was a lot of mess to clear up. But worse, the mess was things like my business that actually looked really shiny and tidy, and membership and coaching and book, and it was like, oh God, no. So it's like the initial overwhelm for me at stopping and listening. I also kind of get where I didn't want to listen for a long time because it was like, dealing with this is too painful. And then ironically, I was thinking about what you're saying, like the weighing the consequences. Actually, the days when I do stuff nobly for other people over myself, in the long run, the balance in that moment, it might feel like letting loads of people down versus letting myself down. But in the long run, I've let myself down and then they all get let down because then ultimately I'm kitchen analogy, I'm burnt out. So then I'm not there anyway.
Right. That's it. Yeah. It's like you kind of discount the cost of the future you, don't you?
Yeah. It's like in the moment, oh God, no brainer. Loads of them, only one of me. But in the long run, it's like, oh, and me too. It'll be like everyone's done. Like I used to let people down in kitchens on a mass scale because I'd be so burnt out I'd have 3 months off rather than like one day. And all of the like the consequences of that were massive. I'm not even sure I want to go there. Like financially for me, the kitchen can't actually employ someone else to replace me because I'm sick. So the business as a whole, they're not just managing a day, they're managing an ending period of time where they can't do anything because nobody knows how long they're going to be off for. I remember being asked like, yeah, it's fine, take as much time as you need, but when will you be back? And actually having to leave a job and just go, I don't know. And that question actually makes me more stressed. So like the consequences, the future consequences are enormous. But in that moment, I didn't used to consider them.
Right. It's like the is it like borrowing from the like taking out of the capital that you have, taking capital out of the business,
Yeah.
It's like if you're essentially the it's a horrible way of saying it, but like the tool for getting things done, right? You're the tool for doing what's needed.
Yeah.
And if you're like, I'm just going to trash the tool now for the sake of something that I don't need to do.
Yeah.
Even though that means the tool will work less well tomorrow and forever.
Yeah.
It's like getting angry at the toaster and trying to like like jam something out of it using a screwdriver, and you like bend the end of the screwdriver and you destroy the toaster. Like if you checked in the moment, you'd be like, this is not what I need to do to the toaster, and I'm going to ruin the screwdriver. Except it's, you know, our lives and ourselves rather than a toaster and a screwdriver.
My body really feels that. Like battered it. Still recovering, actually, I think. You know, on a
It's funny, isn't it? Because you can feel it as like two opposing strategies, right? You know, strategy A, do this, strategy B, do this. We're kind of arguing for strategy B rather than strategy A or whatever. And then when you start thinking of it being like, you know, yourself as a tool for doing what's needed kind of thing, it brings you back to like, oh, it's actually about looking after myself. It's actually about us needing to look after ourselves. You know, it's actually about the logic of how being kind to ourselves is like looking after the toolkit. You know, like you can be the artist or the paint, you know, the house painter who like just leaves the brushes out overnight and they'll get like, you know, rock solid, and then the next day you're kind of like trying to smear some like wonky roller up and down the wall. But like no one thinks that's a good idea. You know, you tend to your brushes at the end of the day, or you clear your desk at the beginning of the day, or you know, put the garden tools back in the shed, or you know, in the kitchen, you sharpen your knives. Isn't that nuts, isn't it? In the kitchens where you worked, if someone had like left a knife out and neglected
oh my God. Even better. When I worked for Raymond Blanc at Manoir, we used to have 12 spoons on each section. So there's like 45 chefs in the restaurant, loads of sections. Every section had 12 spoons. And Amy has still got the written warning she got. I got one as well, but I didn't keep the piece of paper. We got a written warning for not having 12 spoons on the pass at 12 o'clock. Because it was like, you look after your kit, you know where it is. Those spoons better be on the pass. We literally got written warnings. It got a bit ridiculous because it was like, oh, so what? Am I going to get fired in 2 more services where I've got spoons? So the chef had to stop doing it. But yeah, the value on the kit, but the humans like, oh, expendable.
Yeah, it's like, no, the humans are kit. And a completely broken human with a perfectly immaculate spoon.
Oh man. This is so interesting because one of my ponderings since leaving kitchens, and it was 12 years ago now, has been like how to have a kitchen that produces amazing food that looks after the humans. And the conclusion I got to, and still kind of a more leaning that way, is that you just can't. And I'm sure there is a way. Like, I don't think there's a restaurant that's found it yet. It's like, because you have a lot less services, a lot less availability, a lot less on the menu. You know, it's like cooking. Like, if I think now about, if I set up a restaurant, which I wouldn't, but if I did, knowing now what I know and knowing what I'm learning now, like running a business is wholly, wildly different to how businesses are run.
Like, you know, the places where you've been where the staff are genuinely treated well, like not in a like they get perks and things like that, but there's this one there's a cafe in Lewes in Sussex that I just remember going to where you know, if you go to a hotel and you go to the reception desk and like, you know, there might be the receptionist whose job it is just to like, you know, punch the tickets and but like sometimes you might go in there and it's like the owner of the hotel,
right?
Where it's like, oh, this isn't my job, but like, oh, is there no one here? Okay, let me do that for you. And like, there's this really different feeling where like they might still be doing the same technical moves to like check you in, but you can just feel this like, oh, I'm very free in doing this, and if I decide to do this in a different way because it works better for us as two humans, I'm at total liberty to do that. you know, and it's really striking because it's so different when you have that, you know, there's this like, oh, no, don't worry, let me just give you 2 of those, it's fun, you know, and like you can feel like, oh, we're alive in this moment together. And I remember going to this cafe where everyone felt like that. You know, the like sort of the 15-year-old like clearing up the plates at the table. You could feel that they'd show up in that like owner of the hotel at the, you know, happened to be at the reception desk feeling of like, oh, well, I mean, let me get you another one. Don't worry, or you know, like where you can feel that they can just stand at the table and have a chat for, you know, a few minutes or something without kind of looking over their shoulder. And then like the worst places are where it's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Where, you know, like everyone is living in fear and everyone is like kind of trying to go through the motions and kind of dead in it. And so I think they're like trying to compare what's possible when you have a team of people who are alive or a team of people who are dead.
Yeah.
It's kind of no comparison. Like, you know, putting aside the actual technicalities that, you know, your like expertise of knowing what's needed to run a kitchen, make a restaurant, you know, add up and get the food on the table.
But I think as you're speaking, it's like the thing that's coming up for me is that, and it's a bit like when we've been talking about this podcast or running the organization, you know, like building a business, the bit that happens is there's a way to run a restaurant and you must do it like this, and there must be lots of choice and you must be available to the customers and the customer's always right, and there's all these like rules that are unchecked, assumed, and everyone in one way or another kind of buys into them without checking, is what I'm kind of hearing now. So it's like, yeah, there are loads of things about running a restaurant that need to be taken care of, but actually when I look now, I'm like, loads of them are just unchecked. This is the way that restaurants are done. And the people that are doing like what you've just described, they're not like, what was coming up for me then was Vittorio's, which is an Italian restaurant down the road from us that we love going to. One of the reasons we love going there is because the staff are exactly what you just described. They open 5 till 9, 5 days a week. That's it. And any other restaurant rule would go, but you have overhead, you should be open for breakfast and lunch, you should be open 7 days a week. You know, all of those, like, they're basically breaking all the rules. But actually, they're rammed. Getting a table there, even at 5:30, is a night. You know, it's really hard. They're busy when they're open. And they're doing it how they need to do it.
There's a hotel in Amsterdam, in London. They've got branches everywhere now, called Citizen M. And I always used to use it as the example for this work, because I went like, I think like the first week they opened their first hotel in Holland, and they haven't got a reception desk, and you're like,
where do I go?
Right? You know that if the three of us sat down and said like, okay, let's build a hotel. What do you need for a hotel? You'd go like,
a reception desk.
Reception desk. You know, that's it. 1 and 2 rooms, reception desk. Restaurant, maybe not. Reception desk, of course you need a reception desk. And they just worked out like, oh yeah, you can have like a little, you know, self-check-in booth thing. And then instead of having the 3 people who have to sit behind reception all day, just sort of waiting for the next person, those people are just roaming free in the like the lounge that you walk into. And so if someone happens to come in and need some help with their, you know, with their check-in bit, they come and help, right? But if there's no one there, they don't have to stand behind a desk. Like, I just remember sitting there and there's this guy kind of like, yeah, but I don't know where to go in Amsterdam. And the, you know, receptionist spending literally like half an hour listening to him going like, okay, but what kind of techno do you like? You know, and like, okay, well, there's these 3 clubs. Let's have a look at them. Let's see who's playing. Well, he's pretty good, but, you know, and because they can, because they're free to, because they haven't forced them into, you know, fitting into a shape that no one actually needs or cares about. And And I remember, because I was just like obsessed with it, I read an interview with the people who, you know, designed the concept of it. And they basically went through and went like, okay, what are the things that people really find important, really matter to them in a hotel that are really expensive? And what are the ones that are really cheap? And what are the things that people don't really care about that are really expensive? And what are the ones that are really cheap? And it's like having a big room, like no one really cares. You know, if you have a small room that's immaculately designed and beautiful,
and the bed's comfy,
all of that, then you're like, oh yeah, who cares if there's not like, you know, another 12 feet on the side for the second sofa or something like that. No one cares. But suddenly it's like the money involved is completely different. And they're like, but you know, what do people care about? Like, like tons of nice shampoo in the room or something. They're like, well, that's easy. That's a lot cheaper than you know, 12 foot of real estate per room.
Hangers that come off the rail, like that aren't attached.
I'm sure we could do another hour on what you don't like about
right.
about hotels.
Yeah, we could.
But like just hearing that, you know, it's just design, right? In the end, it's just design. It's actually just paying attention to what's needed and then doing that. But like just hearing that they put everything about hotel through the grinder.
Yeah.
And it's like nothing is off the table, you know. And so you don't go, well, you have to have a reception desk because you have a, you know, it's a hotel. You go like, you know, having a reception desk, is that what we need? Is that what I need? And if you're like, well, no, then you work out something that's better and has more life in it, you know. And so it's that. It's like the question is, what happens if you design a kitchen, you know, design a restaurant, design a kitchen, design a way of running a kitchen where you start like, it's mine.
Yeah.
What do I need?
I just had a vision of a clearer who specializes in helping restaurants.
Just
going in and inventorying like everything in the restaurant, going, is this what you need? Is this what you need? It's like, how wild and alive is that?
Yeah.
Like
there's a restaurant in Aarhus in Denmark that Floris our friend Floris, he always tells the story of it, where we were both working in the business school over there. And every lunch for like 2 weeks or something, we would go to this French restaurant, and and it was like, I think it worked out as like £6 or something for a starter and a main course. And he would just say, do you want meat or fish? Or, you know, do you want meat or veg or whatever it was? Probably meat or fish. Yeah. And it's like, do you get to choose the starter? No. Do you get to choose like what you get on the plate? No. Do you get to choose the dessert? No. You know, are there other options? No. You know, it's like going to someone's house.
Yeah. And
so like, was it cheap? Yes. Was it incredible food? Yes. Was it really hard work for him? Not really. He just chose what he wanted to cook and did 2 lots, you know?
Wow. Yeah. I've been to a
did
similar
anyone
restaurant
complain?
in Paris
No,
like
it's cheap and amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar restaurant in Paris with my aunt and uncle like that. Husband and wife. He was in the kitchen, she was serving, and it was the same kind of thing. I think there was like 2 choices for each. Did a bit more choice, but it was just like,
oh, you get so lost, don't you? I'm just thinking about my my broadband, right? Where like I had like I was with one broadband provider and been totally fine. Like I'd had a bad one and then I got a good one of the big ones, and like never had any problems. You know, plugged it in day one, it worked. Never needed to call them over the time for like 3 years or something. I'm gonna move house. And then I ring them up to check, like, okay, how does it work with the moving house? And And they'd clearly designed 10 minutes worth of stuff that you have to listen to. Like where, you know, there's the being on hold, and then there's the questions that they ask you. And then, so that literally, because it was on my phone, you see the timer ticks down, literally got to 10 minutes, 00. And the guy goes, okay, but so what can I help you with? And you're like, oh my God, you know, because they want you to just, you know, like I don't want to break your spirit before you get there.
I was going to say, like, why? Because it doesn't. Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, I can see how, if you're not the husband and wife running the restaurant thing, you're not actually listening for what you need. If you're just doing like, well, what's logically the right thing to do? Then like you can logically right thing to do get yourself into a position where like the right thing to do is to keep the customer on the phone for 10 minutes, like distracting and annoying them until finally you tell them, okay, it will be this much money, or like, okay, no, the discount won't apply until then and then, or whatever, whatever question they don't want to answer. Like, you can totally justify it so long as no one involved in any part of the process is listening for what's needed. And then on the other hand, there's another broadband provider where it's like much more expensive. In the end, it's all the same stuff coming through the wires, but it was these guys where they left a big company and decided to start a new company where if you phone them up, someone will answer. Right? It's like, oh, that is worth 10 quid extra every month. It's just like, hello, oh hi.
It's like, what? There's a human. What the fuck?
Yeah. And it just snips.
Brilliant.
It snips through the chaos.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's that, we're talking about the consequences of not listening.
Oh.
Talking about the blanket over the windscreen.
Yeah.
It's not only that thing in that moment goes wrong. It's not just that you choose that. It's that you go off on this path of ever greater complexity of madness.
Yeah.
It just sprawls and sprawls and sprawls until there's just no humanity in what you're doing, and there's no sense in what you're doing. There's some torturous sense where you can just about justify why, like, pissing off every customer is the best way to do business, or like burning out your staff every 3 months is the correct way to run a restaurant or something.
Yeah.
But it's mad. It's just straightforwardly mad. It's a mad, like, dumb way of doing things. And the beauty of when you start listening is it doesn't improve it a little bit. It just cuts it. It's like waking up from a dream.